This video is going to be a quick one. It's going to be on things that you probably have not thought of. And that is passing time out in the field, your entertainment during your downtime. Now, you're not always going to be doing combat missions. And reading military manuals does get old after a while. Yes, they're useful and that stuff, but you're not going to be doing it constantly. You're going to have downtime. It just happens. Okay? And you want it to happen. You want that freedom to take your mind off of what's going on around you. To take your mind off of the horror, the death, the destruction, and the stuff that's going on. You want to get into that mindset where you're trying to relax a bit. Now, I know some people will say, well, I'll just sleep. You can only sleep so much. I have been on exercises where we've been out in the field for multiple weeks on end, and we got maybe 4 or 6 hours of sleep a day at most. And then once we came back in, we slept every minute we could for a few days, but after a while you can only sleep so much. And then you're going to have time you're going to have to fill. And then there's also times when you're between missions. It's not time to move on to the next location for the next operation. You're still going to be in that one area. You got that limbo time. You got to fill some time. Well, these are some things that we used over the years, and there's lots of others. First off is your basic set of playing cards. Learn different games. Have a deck or two spread out inside your squad, inside your platoon. And when you get that downtime, the playing cards come out and you play. Next to it, I got a deck of Uno cards. Believe it or not, those were used pretty heavily when I was in the desert. When my unit deployed to the big litter box, we were given care packages. And inside that care package was like paper and envelopes and pens, decks of Uno cards, decks of playing cards. Basic items for you to pass your time, comfort type items. And, we played a lot of Uno. That just happened, it got to the point where they were having like tournaments and stuff inside the company. You had, people that were constantly moving back and forth, teams and all kinds of stuff. They had full-on tournaments going. Next to that, well, before I move on here, just a quick note with the playing cards. This is not for everyone. There's nothing wrong with getting the pornographic decks. That actually adds more things to the games that you can do. When I went to the Joint Readiness Training Center at Fort Polk, Louisiana, on one rotation, one of the guys brought a pornographic deck with him. And what ended up happening with that deck is it changed the game. Instead of it being a particular suit was a trump in the game, we changed it up. We said like, okay, all the blondes are the trumps in this hand. Or in this next hand, it's all the brunettes. And the next hand, it's all, the raven-haired, the black-haired women. And the next one, it was all the redheads. I remember we had some games where we would designate one particular woman or a couple particular women. They were the wild cards. They were the jokers when we were playing spades. You have a high joker, big joker, little joker, high joker, low joker. And, we had those particular too. I think one of them we named Jade. She was like the big joker, and then we had another one was the little joker. They were the two highest cards. You change the stuff up. It's a variation in the game. So you're not just looking at what the number, what the suit is. You were looking at, that particular trait on the card. Was that particular trait the trump for that particular round or whatever, depending on the game you were playing. So that's one thing to think about. Going along with that is your porno mags. Now this may surprise you, okay? A lot of the troops that carried that stuff into the field, they were rather specific when they went out and picked them. They would get a magazine where the woman inside looked very close to their wife or their girlfriend. So when they were looking at that magazine out in the field, you know, they were remembering, you know, spending time with their wife, spending time with their girlfriend, dreaming about going home. Just so that you're aware of that. So, a lot of people don't know that. Another thing that's pretty common, as you see there, is paperback books. They don't weigh a lot. They're only a few ounces. So people would bring a book or two out to the field inside their rucksack. When they had their downtime, they read it, and then they would trade that book with someone else who had a book that they read that they wanted to swap out. So books would rotate through a company, you know, a little lending library. And when the book got too worn out and that stuff, it was falling apart, pages were falling out, you know, it would get tossed in the trash. Well, in the militia and guerrilla operations, that book, instead of getting tossed in the trash, it'll get used for kindling, used as fire starter. The same with magazines and newspapers. You'll get a hold of that stuff, you'll read through the stuff. You know, I don't doubt that newspapers will be distributed by the Patriot movement, by the militia movement. You know, different units will probably produce their own newspaper and pass it around. And once you're done reading it, you know, use it as fire starter to stay warm. Another thing that was pretty common was radios. Your basic radio, your AM, FM radios. I did not bring it out here, but I do have one. One of your emergency radios, it has solar power, crank on the side, you can put a battery in the back, it has a jack on it that you can put in, you know, adapter on it and plug it into a wall socket and that stuff. You know, use those radios to listen to music. And especially weather reports. That's a really important thing, to have that information, what the weather is going to be. So having one of those in a platoon or in a squad, you know, they don't weigh a hell of a lot and they come in handy. You're not going to turn them up to max volume like it when you're at home. You're just going to have them loud enough that you can hear them where you're at. And you'll have limitations on them, like you'll listen to them only if it's inside a sleep bunker or a shelter. You're not going to listen to them when you're out on your fighting positions. The last thing I'll bring up is board games. The easiest to get a hold of for people would be your travel games that are sold all over the place. Another one that I see a lot at historic living events. In the frontier era and before, frontiersmen, explorers, and that stuff would carry board games with them, but it wasn't the way we know them now. Instead of actual board games, that gaming board was a piece of cloth, and the game board was painted on that cloth. And then inside that cloth, they would keep their pieces. Now, it could be for chess, could be for checkers, could be for whatever game, you know, they thought of or was popular in that area. And when you didn't play the stuff, you know, it all got rolled up in that stuff, shoved in a little pouch, and it was tied off on your belt, and you went on doing what you were doing. Well, with us, instead of tying it on the belt, you can take that little pouch of the stuff and toss it inside your rucksack. And then when you have your downtime, you're going to be down for a while, you know, reach in the rucksack, pull it out, lay out your little game cloth board, and, you know, set up some pieces, get some people who want to play. There's lots of ways to do this, you know, and this is a huge morale thing. Keep the spirits up of the troops. This is something that's not typically thought of. I know, because of being a veteran, leadership typically only concentrates on The mission, and when you have downtime, they expect you're going to spend all your time preparing for the next mission, or you're going to be studying. You're going to be reading a field manual, you're going to be reading a technical manual. In real life, that doesn't happen. Yes, we did do that in the field, but you can only do that so much. You want that pastime, you want that recreation to take your mind off of things. It's great for morale, it's great for your psychological health. Just some things to consider. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember, essayons.